Hello guys, great to see you back on the channel. And you know, I think the last time you saw me here in my kitchen was when I was talking to you about the Benro Polaris tracking mount. And I've had a fair bit to do with that mount over the last few months. And this is a bit of an update on that mount and a few other things. But the first thing I want to tell you about the mount is, well, currently this is the only bit I've got of the mount. This is the Astro attachment, because I had to send it back. Now, you remember in the last video, I talked about the fact that I was having trouble turning the unit on consistently. Well, eventually Benro got back to me and said it was a faulty circuit board. That's what they thought, and I had to send the unit back, which I have done to the local supplier here in Australia. They said to take this off, and obviously they don't need this part. But so here I am, sitting here patiently waiting for my Benro Polaris to come back to me. But I do want to show you some images that I shot with the Benro before I sent it back since the last video. So I've done a lot of work with this Polaris, and I think I've pretty much got the hang of it now, albeit struggling to turn the unit on that I previously had. So I'll show you those images in one moment. But before I do that, I want to show you a few other things that I'm getting up to at the moment. So let's go and have a look at that. Now, as you'd be well aware, at this time of year, every year, I organise Nightscape images calendars. And so I'm right in the middle of that at the moment. I've got box loads of the things here, and I'm really proud of this year's calendar. It's just amazing. A lot of images that I've shot over the past year or so here, and a few in Tassie. You can see the image there on the front cover is one of my favourites from my recent Tasmania trip this year. But anyway, I've got quite a few of these. I've been selling them for a few years all around the world, and every year I sell out of these. So if you'd like one, just follow the link in the description below this video. So another thing that I'm working on is a photographic exhibition here in my local town in Bendigo in Victoria, Australia, which I'm going to be holding in November. So I've been working on some images, framing them up. I mean, have a look at this beauty. Just a gorgeous Aurora image from the end of last year. But all of the images that I'm going to have in that display will be framed like this, all for sale at very competitive prices. Quite a few more. There's another one. Beautiful. These are my fine art laminate prints. So there's no glass, no reflection, and they are excellent. Close up, beautiful. And have a look at this. Lighthouse from Tasmania, Milky Way galactic core. What more do you want in a print? That is just beautiful. And so I've got these everywhere in the house. You can see them all over the walls here. I'm working on that. That's going to take me a few weeks, but it's at the beginning of December. I'll give you some more clues about that. You can come and meet me if you're in Australia. I've apologised for those of you who are not in Australia. You probably can't make it. But anyway, you'll be able to follow that online. Now, there's one other really, really important thing I want to bring to your attention. All right, so previously today we were discussing the Benro Polaris mount, but right now I want to draw your attention to a fabulous offer from Skywatcher Australia. So my good mate Will from Skywatcher has generously offered to give away a Skywatcher Star Adventurer Mini Pro Pack. Now, as you know, I've been using this Skywatcher Star Adventurer Mini for, well, about a year or so. And I have to say, I've got a number of mounts. This is my favorite by a long way. I love the small size, portability, ease of use, and accuracy. And as well as that, even though it's really tiny, it packs a punch. It can carry a fair weight. And I just love everything about that mount. So what Will has done is generously offered a complete pro package. And how do you get this? Now, I have to say up front, unfortunately, this is only available to Australia or New Zealand residents. So those of you following from overseas, I'm really sorry, I can't send it over there. But if you're in Australia or New Zealand, all you need to do is comment down below this video and tell me, why would you want the Skywatcher Star Adventurer Mini? What do you want to do with it? That's all. I just want to hear from you. I want to know, and we'll be randomly selecting a winner at the end of September roughly. So you'll probably see it advertised elsewhere as well. But I really do, again, want to thank Will from Skywatcher Australia for generously offering this amazing mount. So as I said, I do have a fair bit going on, but I did promise you earlier I wanted to show you some more images I've shot with the Benro Polaris tracking mount. So let's go and have a look at those right now. So firstly, I want to show you this image. Now, this was quite unplanned, and I used a Nikon Z6 camera, but with a Sony 20mm f1.8 lens. So I used a Megadap adapter on this, and it was just in my backyard. And I took all of these images here. You can see it's a panorama. It's an untracked panorama. So I just set it to go from one side to the other, and it's 2 rows in the portrait vertical orientation. You can see the images there. These are just straight out of camera. A little bit of adjustments I've done here. I've raised the shadows a bit, increased the whites, decreased highlights, probably changed the white balance a little bit because this was shot with my Astro modified camera. But basically, if you look at the before and after, yeah, not much difference. Shadow definitely lifted, but you know, there's not a whole lot of difference there. So I did the sky as well as the foreground. Now you can see the sky there was behind these trees in the foreground, and that was I remember seeing the Milky Way galactic core setting over my house. This is a Bortle 4 sky, so you know it's not as dark as I usually shoot in, but in the end I think this image came up quite well, and there it is there. This is stitched in a Microsoft Ice. You can see it there full screen. And, you know, it's not the best image I've ever shot, but having said that, I actually quite like it. It's got a real ambience about it, a nice tone, sort of rich, warm colours, and, you know, it's just my backyard, so why not? So that was the first image I wanted to show you. Now, the next trip I had out with the Benro Polaris was, I was actually on my way home from a speaking engagement I had at a camera club, very late. It was about a 2-hour drive back home, and I was in extremely dark sky location, and I thought, gee, it's clear as a bell. It was -2 degrees Celsius, so it was pretty cold for Australia. But I had my 50mm lens, and I thought, right, I'm going to shoot a panorama. You can see this first image is really only a test shot. This is 50mm f2.8, 60 seconds at ISO 1600, pretty much my standard settings. You can see there, that's a Roa Fuki complex. This is completely unedited, straight out of camera. So it's a little bit of noise, but not too bad. Now, to be honest with you, I think I may have missed focus a fraction on this image. You can see it looks a bit blobby up there in the top corner. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. My aim of this was to stitch it into a panorama. And because of the editing techniques I use, I removed the stars anyway. And when I put them back in, a little bit of blobbiness is not such a bad issue. Now, these are not massively out of focus, but they are a little bit. I'm just putting it out there. So you can see here I shot 50 images. And you can see there's about 3 rows, or I think it was 3 rows. I mean, the Benro works it out for you. You don't have to set how many rows. You just sort of say, I want it to start here and I want it to finish there. So I did that, and you can see all down the bottom here, all the different images that I shot, all the same settings. So that was really good, because what I did, I sat in the car with my gloves on. It was nice and warm in there, -2 degrees outside. I had a lens warmer on the camera, so I was well aware that there was a few issues with potential fogging up, and I didn't want to go down that track. So you can see I shot this with the 50mm Nikon f1.8 lens. I stopped it down to f2.8, a little bit sharper at f2.8, 60 seconds, ISO 1600, and you can see the image here. Absolutely beautiful. So it was in the middle of nowhere, very dark sky, a little bit of glow on the horizon, but I don't mind that because it gives an ambience to the shot. You can see my Milky Way galactic core arch over this tree, a bit of a crop in the paddock. I have shot this location before, this exact composition in the past, but I just wanted to go there and try out the tracking for a multi-row, about 50 shots. I did crop it down a little bit, so it might be down to about 35 or something in the end, but that did phenomenal job. It was no problem at all doing 50 shots. I just sat in the car, so that is the #1 reason why I bought the Benro Polaris in the first place. So the next time I took the Polaris out, I took 2 lenses with me. Firstly, a 14mm f2.8 Nikon lens, and an 85mm f1.8. So I wanted to try both of those. So this is a 14mm lens. And look, pretty much any tracking mount will have no troubles at 14mm, but even so, I still wanted to give it a go and see what I could get out of it. And in the end, it really worked quite well. You can see I actually shot 3 images here into a panorama, which there's the edge of my car. One thing I'll tell you about is whenever you're shooting an ultra-wide lens like a 14mm, you've got to make sure your car's a long way away from the tracking mount. But anyway, here's a rough idea of what that pano stitched like. So that looks pretty good. That's pretty much unedited. There's nothing much done to that, but I did work on it a bit later on. So I'll show you the images in a minute. But then I moved on to 85mm, and I wanted to shoot a tracked panorama at 85mm. So here you can see an image straight out of camera. Pretty much no editing done to this at all. And that's what it looks like at 85mm. Now that is a 60-second shutter speed, 85 at f2.8. Good tracking, accuracy, no problem at all. And I was pretty happy with that. Now I did shoot at 3-minute shutter speed at 85. Let's just have a look at that, because that's the first one I did. So as you can see in this example, it's not tracking well at all, and it's got these little strange bumpy lines. Now I've noticed this before with the Benro. It's got all sorts of funny movements on occasions when the tracking isn't working. Now admittedly, this is a 3-minute shutter speed at 85mm, so you know, I'm not expecting it to be able to do that, to be honest. So but there, I'm just showing you what it looks like. So it looks like little curves, looks like little eyelashes or something. So there's multi-axis movement. It was not windy at all. It was not a breath of wind, so it's not wind. But anyway, once I got it back to 60 seconds, as I've showed you just now, this is what it looks like. And much, much better. Really good. And you know, that's fine for me, because my tracking is nearly always at 60-second shutter speeds for all of my lenses. I don't need to go longer than that for the majority of cases, and if I think I do, I won't be using the Benro. I'll be using something else. All right, so that's 85. I did a multi-row panorama of 85mm. I've done a few shots down here which I haven't actually edited at all yet. You can see them here. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like. Again, that's at 60-second shutter speeds. Looks fantastic. Really, really nice. And you can see the tracking is good at 60 seconds at 85mm. So happy with that. As again, this is a completely unedited image straight out of the camera with a Nikon Z6 Astro modified camera, hydrogen alpha. Now I'll show you the images I eventually ended up with on this night. So first off, I was absolutely delighted with this image. Now this is shot at 14mm focal length. And I've added just a little bit of light to the side here of the foreground, but I love that sky. So I rarely shoot at 14mm focal length, but you have to have a look at this. It is a beautiful image. I'm loving this. And you can see the fine detail in the sky there. It is just a gorgeous image. And so I'm very pleased with this. Look at that. Zoom in a little bit. You can see just the dust lanes and everything. 14mm focal length. Foreground, great detail. Now I did do a little bit of work to straighten up that windmill because it was bent a fraction with the 14mm lens, as you would expect, but I'm wrapped with how it came out. Now this is a re-edit of an image I shot a couple of years ago, so I wanted to go back and revisit this particular location. It is a gorgeous image shot at 20mm. Now that's a 3-shot panorama in the sky there, and a fine art light painted foreground at 20mm, and I'm wrapped in this. This is that sky is shot with a Benro Polaris, and it looks great. Really, really nice indeed. I stitched this with Microsoft Ice Image Composite Editor. Does a great job of stitching panoramas for those who are looking for something that's cheap. Couldn't get any cheaper. It's absolutely free for Windows only, I think. But yeah, it's a great image. Love the foreground. The foreground is my fine art light painted method, as you can see. Amazing detail. But there's also amazing detail in that sky. Have a look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So that's at 14mm, 3-shot panorama sky. Foreground is about I can't remember, about 8 or 10 shots light painted with my fine art light painting method. Oh, now we're getting onto that 85mm focal length, and have a look at this absolutely gorgeous image. Now, there's a touch of moonlight on this scene. That's an 8-shot panorama at 85mm, and just have a look at how gorgeous this looks. Now, in Australia here in the past few weeks, there's been this beautiful green air glow happening in my location, and it's been in a lot of my images. But this one, just look at the detail. Now, that's 85mm, and why on earth wouldn't you shoot at 85mm if you can get this sort of detail? So isn't that just beautiful? So not a massive amount of editing went into this. You might be surprised. Not as much as you would think. 85mm, so I will be using 85mm when I can. Of course, 85mm means you need to have your subject quite close to the ground to get it to fit a foreground, but in this case it did that quite well. Now, just to finish off, I want to show you 2 more images. I'm really proud. I love these. This one is 14mm focal length again, and it's just a country scene. Another one of my late night adventures. And when I was driving down this road, I thought to myself, what an amazing view this is. And so I jumped out of the car. It was in the middle of nowhere, middle of the night, no one around. Very easy to get the shot here. This is a single tracked sky at 14mm, single foreground, long exposure, and just blended the two together. And you know what? There is just so much detail in this image. If you zoom in, you can see all sorts of things. You can see the road stretching off into the distance there, and you can see there's a house down there with a light on somewhere. Nice detail in the sky. Once again, beautiful shot. Again, we've got that green air glow, which seems to have been everywhere at the moment. And this is the last one that I'm going to show you today. This is shot at 20mm focal length, and it's another panorama. I think I've forgotten off the top of my head, but it's about 6 or 7 shots. Panorama, 20mm focal length. One single exposure at 20mm for the foreground. And so you'll see that this one has, oh, there's some cows in there, a whole heap of cows in that paddock in the foreground, and they did move a little bit during the shot, so there's a few ghost cows in there, but other than that, it looked fantastic. Bit of a mountain range there in the background, and you can see good detail in that foreground, even though it's 1/62nd exposure, and that beautiful dead tree, and you know I love dead trees, so you can't beat that. But this image is another one I'm very proud of. Again, remnants of that green air glow that we've had all around the place here in Australia. But I love this image, and all of these images I've just showed you shot with the Benro Polaris tracking mount. Well, there you go. I've got quite a bit going on, as you can see, in the next few weeks, but I am really looking forward to it. So, looking forward to reading your comments down below this video, and until I see you in the next video, you have a great week. I'll see you then.